Hello and welcome to IoT World Today. I'm Lauren Horwitz, Senior Content Director. And today I'm going to talk a little bit with you folks about architecting the network for IoT. So just as by way of introduction, as IoT pros build their environments, one of their big questions is how do you architect your network to enable IoT devices and data to become useful to you? Transferring large volumes of data through a low bandwidth or unreliable network can create application performance issues or even cause data security problems down the line. So today I'd like to welcome Jason Gooley, who is Technical Evangelist for Intent-Based Networking Sales at Cisco. Jason, it's been so long. Welcome. It's great to see
Thank you. Good seeing you again. It's been a while.
Yes, we were catching up a little bit off video, but now we are going to catch up a little bit on what Cisco calls intent-based networking, what other companies kind of refer to as network automation and policy-driven management of the network. So I'm going to just launch right in, ask you some questions because you are the man, you know quite a bit about what's going on at Cisco and just generally how this works in the market. So
sure.
First, I'm going to ask you, what are some of the biggest trends in networking that people should be aware of, and how are they kind of enabling technologies like Internet of Things?
Yeah, so that's kind of a big one, right? And I think a lot of the things that we talk about in this day and age seems to be taking all these disparate systems, sticking them together, and getting some sort of value out of doing so. And what I mean by that is everyone who's ever managed or monitored or maintained a network has multiple different tools that they use in order to do that. But the value really comes when you can get the analytics out of the data from all of those in one fell swoop, right? I mean, if you can see what's going on in your network before anything ever happens, and you know that if something does happen, it can automatically change it to address that, whether it's an outcome, blocking a user is not supposed to be there or what have you, that's the real value, right? We're trying to get to that automatic, almost dare I say, like the living network, right? It's like an alive network that kind of automatically adapts to what's going on in the environment. So that's one of the biggest things I think we see driving the movement of automation.
And are trends like network segmentation, virtualization, policy-driven automation, are those things that you guys talk about regularly? Are they kind of prerequisites for making this happen?
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things. I don't want to say table stakes, but it's getting to the point where it's table stakes to what our customers are expecting, right? And I think, in order to make that big picture happen of automation, you have to have those individual things happening automatically. So if somebody nefarious gets on the network and we don't want them in our conference room plugging in, whatever it may be, we want it to be able to automatically detect that, block it, either quarantine that person in a separate VLAN or block them altogether. And also, we've done these kind of honeypot type things where folks are plugging in and they don't know that they're blocked. They're quarantined, and then all of a sudden somebody can walk up behind them and say, "Excuse me, you're now in trouble," whatever that may be. But and depending on your organization, I have seen that actually play out where the security, internal security for the network as well as physical security, will walk up because they can now see what you're doing and where you are and who you are based on identity, and handle that threat accordingly. So I think that when you start looking at all the different areas of the business and the different volumes of data that are out there, the hardest part I think everybody's trying to sort through right now, pun intended, is the sheer quantity of the amount of data and what can we actually do with it to make our lives easier, being the business stakeholders.
And before I get to my next question, you actually just raised something that I remember back in 2017, I was at Interop. Susie Wee was talking about the new sort of business value of the network. Susie Wee's at Cisco, and she was talking about the ability of the network to sort of drive data that can tell you about your users, where they are, what they're doing, and then kind of customize your business accordingly so that you can serve them where they are. You can provide products to what their needs are, and the network is telling you things about your business that it maybe wasn't 10 years ago. Is that, are you pointing to that somewhat as well?
Yeah, exactly. And then even if you look at everything you just said and kind of the thread through it all is it boils down to experience. The experience for whomever is using that network. So it's for the business. So the users of the tools that need simplicity, the users of the actual wireless network who need connectivity and security, the business folks themselves who are trying to use that value of what's going on. Think about retail. You have I won't pick a particular public brand. I'll just say, so say there's a place where you walk by and they might serve coffee, they might serve smoothies, whatever it may be. But we want to make sure that you get the best experience you have. So you can order by app, you can pop coupon codes using technology like Bluetooth Low Energy, and you can do all these different things to make your consumer experience better. And what's so funny about that is it's kind of a play on words, but you're consuming the network. You're using it to do something. And then the folks who run the network have the network to allow you to do that or to better their business. And I think when you see all that stitched together, it really does just boil down to experience for how do you experience your daily job of maintaining? How do you experience your daily life of using and adapting to what you have around you? So it's pretty interesting to see that literally come to life. And I mean, one example, and I'll make it a quick one. You mentioned IoT, and I don't know how many years ago now it was now, probably 4 or 5, maybe 6 years ago. I can't remember exactly. We had the IoT World Forum in Chicago. And one of the things that Cisco did with the city was we worked on different areas of the town to make it connected. And one of the things that they did I thought was a fascinating use case was when you go downtown a major city, Boston, Chicago, you have these trash cans that you just, you put trash in. And then usually there's like signs stuck to them with advertisements of talking about whatever is for sale or what it might be, a movie or something. They figured out a way to connect those to tell you how full they are. And the reason that's important, one of the use cases that they did is they said they had something like 376 trash trucks that went on routes every day, and they just drove. And whether it's full or empty, they just drove. And that costs a lot of money, a lot of play on the environment. There's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into that. Yes. And I think they whittled it down from 370 something to I can't remember. It was really, really finite, 40 something. And the reason they did that was because they were able to just have the trash can tell me if you're not 50% or more full or 70% full, I'm not sending anybody. Sure. I'll send it when it's ready. And then now you think about that, it's targeted now instead of just constantly roaming around and just driving around trying to find something that needs to be done. And just anything you can think of like that in that realm could provide a lot of significant value to the environment, even your business and the folks who are consuming it.
That's a great example. And, you raised some, there's some obvious benefits from that: cost savings, energy efficiency, productivity of the workers, visibility into where the workers are, all that jazz. Okay, so now I want to talk about some of the downsides. So this is not easy. This takes I think you used the phrase, there's a lot of data that you have to stitch together. And for any business environment, this takes some customization. You don't just kind of deliver a network that's ready to go to do all of this. So tell me a little bit about what some of the challenges that you discuss with customers, other peers that are still kind of present.
One of the biggest ones that I would have to say, and especially talking to all these different customers, and it's really nice that you can talk to customers worldwide and get different perspectives from different areas, but it seems like it all boils down to the first thing, and that first thing is that skill set. Not a lot of folks out there really know or understand automation, programmability, trying to figure out how to use APIs to stitch different tools together to get the value of what you need. And when you think about it that way, it's really hard. You have to really be an environmental designer, right, or a network developer to sit down and figure out what is going on in your environment and really what you want to gain out of it. And that's the hardest part. Learning the technology is not necessarily the hard part. Learning APIs and programmability, the harder part is actually to sit down with your business and figure out what do we want our network to do for us.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of these things that we've really always wanted, the data points that we want, maybe we want our warehousing and stock and inventory to play directly into something that's going on with a salesperson out there with a tablet. So you can just right from there, I'm like, well, we have that in stock right here. We have this much of it. It looks just like this. You can see it in your own environment. There's a lot of different ways to spin that. And I think it basically boils down to the business and trying to drive the value out of what you can do. And because that network itself is pretty much there as a tool to help you along. And learning the tasks that need to be automated is probably harder than automating the tasks, because that takes a lot of conversations from different lines of business to make that come together so you can agree on it, so you can visualize it before you can even automate it.
Yep, absolutely. So those are all some of the things that we talk about quite frequently. So now, I think also in my travels and my discussions with various users, one of the big challenges that's still present is how, how do we ingest the data in a meaningful way, in a single view with just the metrics we need to see. How far along are we on that sort of single pane of glass and really giving users what they need, not every data point that they could possibly have, but in a single view that's really digestible?
Sure, more like a curated view for what you are interested in, or what the user is interested in. So I don't think we're that far, because there's definitely ways of doing it. Like at Cisco, there's a couple things that are called, we have multi-domain, where we're tying different domains like Cisco SD-WAN and Cisco Campus together and bringing all this stuff together to get the data you need. But even outside of just that, I mean, I think in general terms in the industry, being able to stitch those things together and learn how to do that seems to be more present and available now than it was before. There's plenty of places to go out and learn how to use the APIs and use programmability and different programming languages for that matter as well. But that seems to be coming along quite a bit. But I think there's still a couple pieces to the puzzle that are harder to achieve for a lot of folks, and that's, where do I find the time to learn this stuff, right? I mean, because we're already working on your day job, which is keeping the lights on, keeping the network working, functioning, supporting your users. So that becomes an issue, being able to get the time. But you're starting to see, though, the businesses and these organizations giving that time to their engineering staff to learn, because they know that we're at a pivotal we're at a pivotal time in the industry, pivotal, and that we need to change the direction a little bit to start getting the value of what we need from a business use case. And I think that the fact that customers and businesses are starting to allow that time to learn and ingest, and sending folks to training and online classes and to DevNet and all this other stuff, it's a real testament that things are moving in the direction we want them to be. So I don't think it's that far off. Frankly, you can do it now with APIs and stuff like that based on what you want, should you already know what you want and have the skill set to pull the data together. So I think more so than not, customers are starting to dip their toe in it. But I think the other thing is, a lot of customers are kind of afraid of it, that it might get automated out of a job or something. And I think as we slowly make that transition, you'll start to see that a lot more data clicking together will be simpler. You might have, like, for example, Cisco DNA Center has an API and it has an SDK. You can click it, enable it, and all of a sudden you're working directly with an IP address manager, or you're working with Splunk, or you're working with some other things. There's all these different options. So I think that's something that we'll see pretty quickly.
And now finally, I just want to ask, we've seen a lot of change in network programmability just even over the past few years. We're really moving from sort of a hardware driven environment to software and programmability and kind of cloud enabled networks. What else do you see coming, or do you see just more of this, or what else do you see kind of coming down the line for IoT and networks? And
I do see more of it coming for sure. The other thing is, though, I think that we are getting to a point where we are starting to really see the value of connecting things. But I also think, just based on the industry, that there are some things that, once you connect them, you will not be able to unconnect them. So we have to make sure that we're cautious in what we do, and whatever reason we're connecting things to get the data, that there's value to it. Because I think that, there's a fine line, and I think everybody out there, especially based on the last year or so that we've all been connecting via smart devices and apps, that there's a trade-off, because depending on what you're doing, you might be also giving away some of your privacy and your own secret stuff. So we want to make sure that we protect the folks as well. But again, there are some things that can be connected, could just really change the world. And you think about some of these other areas of the world that either completely don't have any connectivity or have very small connectivity. Imagine what connected farms can look like, and imagine what connected schools. We already saw last year what connected learning looks like.
Yes.
And remote working. A lot of us have been doing that in this industry, but there are a lot of folks who are never working from home, and are now, and probably will not go back. And that's a value to the employees, but also the companies, because the companies are starting to realize we might not need to pay as much as we're paying from a building facility perspective, and the insurances and the rates and parking and all of the stuff that goes along with it, if we can have this job remote. And that working remote offers its flexibility, and there's benefits and value to that as well. So I think it's going to be more of a hybrid work approach. We're going to see hybrid workforces. We're going to see, the new, I hate to say the words new normal, but we're not going to be able to go back to exactly the way it was before. And I think that's just life, and that's evolving. And if it wasn't the pandemic, it would have been something else that blew the top off of something for us to realize, oh, wow, we can do this differently. And it might be more beneficial this way. So keeping an open mind on how this stuff is evolving, I think, is a really good way to look at it. But I could also say that there's been a lot of really good positive moments of working from home and using automation and things of that nature. So it'll be on everybody to kind of find what's good for them as well.
And we've seen, industries like healthcare and, digital health and healthcare being more accessible for people in more remote locations without a lot of specialists or really flagship hospitals, and the ability to kind of meet with doctors remotely. It's just changed so much. So could not agree more. In all these different pockets of society, we've really seen connected things change the way we're living and working, of course. So
one point to even draw from that is thinking back 20 years ago. If this would have happened 20 years ago, right, we could have been in a lot worse of a position, because there wasn't so much working from home. There wasn't so much remote VPN. There wasn't so much cellular and mobile tablets and working from beaches and all this other stuff that everybody gets to do. So it could have been a very different outcome of what would have happened maybe then, right? The industry might not have been able to bounce back as quickly as it did, and things of that nature. So it's interesting to see, and I really love being a part of it, because you think back, I remember when it came out with the cell phone, or internet was first created, and a modem, and everybody's looking at me like I'm old, but it's fascinating to see how much it's changed from then to where we are now. And it will keep going.
Well, I'm hoping, Jason, that we'll have another opportunity to check in with you in another few months. Before we got on this recording, we talked a little bit about Cisco Live happening next year. Hopefully we'll have a chance well before Cisco Live to meet and talk about what's happening in the industry. So thank you so much for joining us today. It's been far too long since I got a chance to catch up with you.
It's been great.
And I know you're off to do some other things today, so I'll just let our readers know, if you're interested in learning more about IoT, you can always check out IoT World Today. And thanks once again to Jason Gooley of Cisco for joining us today. And until next time, I'm Lauren Horwitz.
Thank you.